I'm Allie Dinkins. New Stage has been my home theater since I was in high school. I took my first acting class in this theater and then went to undergraduate in Texas and moved to Michigan and got lucky enough to marry a Jackson guy and move back and have been working at New Stage ever since, and that was in the mid-90s. The last production I did in this beautiful theater was before the pandemic, and it was Morningside, where I got to play a mother of a lady who was about to have a baby, and I was losing my mind. So it's very natural for me. My first main stage production, I had done several other productions, but my first main stage production was A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, and I played a courtesan. I was a scantily clad courtesan. What is every brilliant thing about? Every brilliant thing is about looking for the gifts that God is giving in our lives during each stage of life, during the hardest or most surprising things, and during the happiest, also most surprising things, the things that we never thought would happen to us, both good and bad. And then just like the everyday things in between, like making a ham and mayonnaise sandwich, but being grateful for each of those things. It's not cliche. It is filled with wonder. One of my favorite things is wishing flowers, which I think are dandelions. And the character that I play in Every Brilliant Thing would never overlook a wishing flower. What makes this production unique for New Stage Theater? Well, importantly, it's kind of like being invited to a restaurant on a by invitation only night because it's a smaller crowd. They've moved the main stage production down into the Hughes room. So for those of you who are familiar with theaters that have different spaces, the Hughes room is our black box space, our space that we get to change around. And so we'll be performing in the midst of the audience on three sides and walking in and out of the audience and interacting with the audience. So also the audience helps tell the story, and I don't get to tell them how to tell the story. I can kind of give hints, but they get to change the story, and I get to keep the story going towards the main point as they change the story. So it's very different from theater that I've seen. How do I relate to this character? Well, I'll have to say, my friends who have read the script or seen the show immediately reached out to me and said, this show sounds like it was written for you. The wonder, the life-affirming, deliberate, positive outlook in the midst of not glossing over what's really happening is kind of how I approach life, like as a human being, me, Allie, not just as an actor. I think it's really important not to pretend like things are better than they are, but to find whatever we can in the moment to make them the best that's possible to be. And that's what this character does, starting at 7 years old, going all the way to present day. She starts a list of every brilliant thing. And like when she's little, it's things like people falling over, which is really funny, people falling over. And then as she gets older, it's things like the perfect song for the moment, which is equally life-affirming. It's so hopeful. It just sends the message that no matter what's happening, we can have hope. Is Every Brilliant Thing a comedy? I think the story is too rich and meaningful, it would oversimplify it to call it a comedy, but it's mostly funny. I think that really it's important for us to laugh at ourselves no matter what is happening. And this character has nailed that. Being able to laugh at herself, but also to laugh at like how things go right or wrong and how unexpected that can be. So if I had to pick a category, drama or comedy, I'd have to put it in comedy, but it's really too deep. They're entwined. They absolutely banter and play with each other. It's both. What is the biggest challenge of doing a one-person show? I think in this show, it's going to be being able to really concentrate on the audience, because different people in the audience are my scene partner. So for you actors out there, your scene partner is usually on the stage with you. But in this show, I have scenes with different audience members. And so I have to remember the direction that the script is going, but I also need to really be listening to what the audience member says. So for me, it's a brain game, which my brain is growing. That's really good. My list of brilliant things would include my children, especially when they're in good moods. My list of brilliant things would include my calm dog. My dog follows me all over my house, is rarely outside of this far from me, 6 inches at the most, and is calm. My list of brilliant things would include ice cream with sprinkles or a very special flavor, never vanilla, because that is boring. My list of brilliant things would include long conversations with friends at my house. Oh, my list of brilliant things would include being asleep, like that almost sound asleep, you know you're gonna sleep well, and then reaching my little toes over to touch my husband's toes in the warm bed. Every brilliant thing is important because I, as an actor, get to tell audience members who have struggled themselves with discouragement, gloom, depression, that they're not alone. I, as an actor, get to share with audience members what it's like to live with gloom. Either the gloom of a loved one or my own gloom. In the theater, I believe that the reason that I do theater is that understanding why other people do what they do helps us to love them more completely. So if I'm sitting in an audience and I'm watching a character that does things that I can't imagine myself doing, and the actor actually makes me believe that those actions are justified, then I grow. I get to have more compassion for other human beings that I didn't understand before that moment. As an actor, I get to let audience members feel like they're not alone. They're not the only one. And they can understand other lovely creations that they didn't understand before. So every brilliant thing is important because we get to do that for each other. One of the really cool things in the way this script is written is that the audience members actually go through the process that the character goes through, that the character uses to grow. So the character uses the deliberate focus on brilliant things, things that are life-affirming, things that are wonderful, things that are worth living for. The character uses the deliberate observation of those things to get through life, to appreciate life. And the audience gets to do the exact same thing. So the audience and the actor participate in the exact same behaviors in this show. That is really unique and wonderful to me.